Welcome to Stronger You Radio with Mike Dola. Join Mike and friends as they discuss issues to keep you healthy, fit, and on track to create a stronger you. Let's listen in now.
What's up, Stronger You family? Welcome back to another edition of Stronger You Radio. I am your host, Tanner Bays, and today we've got a really special edition episode for you. A few weeks back, Mike Dola and Coach Winnie Abramson went live in the Facebook group to talk about nutrition myths. Now, we have all run into nutrition myths at some point or another, whether it being that we can't eat carbs after a certain time, whether it being that we have to avoid diet sodas like they are the plague. You name it, there is a nutrition myth out there that somebody has fallen victim to at some point or another. And most of us coaches and members have fallen victim to plenty of these. So Mike and Winnie went live in the group to talk about nutrition myths, and they wound up covering over 100 of them. I think something like 150, and spent a lot of time talking about where these myths come from, how they can kind of manifest into behaviors that aren't ideal or sustainable, and how we can kind of battle these nutrition myths in our own lives, as well as the lives of those who are close to us and that we're kind of bringing along with us in our nutrition journey. So buckle up, friends. This is a big one. It's full of knowledge, but it's also not short. So this might be one that you pause and come back to at different points, but we assure you it'll be worth it. So give it a listen, whip out your notebook and take some notes, and hope you enjoy it.
Okay, well, the very first question is, you're not eating enough to lose weight. That was the first question we got. The ever popular...
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, no, Mike, you take this one.
So this is like my favorite question.
I know it is.
Because this is like the biggest myth in nutrition. Like somebody says, hey, I'm not losing weight. I'm only eating like 1,100, 1,200 calories. What gives? And it's not that you're not eating enough. It's that much like the internet and Facebook and Instagram, we only remember the highlight reels, or we only talk about the highlight reels. And for people that think they're not eating enough to lose weight, they're only remembering the highlights, which are the perfect days. They forget the days that they go over or accidentally eat too much. And when you do really eat a few calories, it is hard to stick to it. It does cause stress, and overeating in this today or this common food environment is extremely easy. So nobody holds weight if they don't eat enough. And I said this in the blog a couple weeks ago. Dieters aren't the only people that don't lose weight when they're underfed. Think of everyone in the world world history that's starved. It's because they didn't eat enough. So it's just accidental overages. There's no such thing as starvation mode as people define it like this. So yeah, that myth is busted. I wish I had a stamp. I'd be like, bam.
Yeah, and there's the site that we like to show people, the Physiconomics, has a couple like really good posts about this particular topic. Like just related to metabolism and showing that how easy it is to underreport calories. And that's what's usually, that's what's always going on when people don't think they're eating enough to lose weight. And also, most people are just thinking about like what they do Monday to Friday and not what they do Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah. And there is like I think it's like the telephone game. Like the message started as, hey, there's metabolic adaptation that happens when you lose weight. Like you need less energy. And people translated that into, oh, I'm not eating enough. And that's just a little mix up in the message. Yeah.
And a lot of the questions we got are related to metabolism and metabolic downregulation. So I think this will come up again as we go through the list.
We'll try to get through these relatively quick because there is a bunch and I don't want you guys to miss out. So this next one, still having a tough time accepting the fact that I can eat white rice, white potatoes, pasta, and see loss in weight inches, even eaten in moderation. Well, that's because these things aren't bad, because weight loss is about energy in, energy out, and potatoes and white rice and pasta are just energy. So if you're still in a deficit, whether you eat brown rice, sweet potatoes, or whole wheat pasta, you're still going to lose.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people we have this conditioning based on past diets and past stuff we read about these particular foods being high in carbs and high carb foods having this insulin response that would somehow keep weight loss from happening, because that went around the internet and lots of books written on that topic, but they just don't happen to be. It's not right. It's not a correct thinking or hypothesis about weight loss.
And it's been debunked, but
very many times.
I'll name him, Gary Taubes. He refuses to accept the science. And it's like this thing in the evidence-based community. Everyone's like, but look, man. And he's just like, nope, changing my argument. Yeah. And I mean, I get it. He sold a bunch of books and he's got to stick by his thing. But for me personally, if new information comes out, I am changing my mind.
And I think we have thousands and thousands of people in this group who eat these foods and who do lose. So we've debunked it.
Right. And that's the thing too. Like, but if carbs make everyone overweight, how are people here eating hundreds of carbs and losing weight?
Right.
Like, it's not made up, No. So yeah, don't be scared of it. It's all good. Right. Counting net carbs is the only way to count carbs. The net carb thing, technically it's true to an extent. Some fibers and sugar alcohols don't have as many calories as regular carbs. So a lot of these like keto plans and other plans that are like just count net carbs, they're saying that because technically you're eating fewer calories, but it gets so difficult to the point where you have to track so many more things, and it encourages people to game the system a little bit. So we just say, just track the carbs. Like, don't try to do all this extra crazy math for a few extra calories. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
This is a good one. I think this one came up a few times.
Oh, it came up a lot. Yeah.
Is it bad to eat late? I'm hitting my macros, but sometimes I get them right before bed. Does that hurt my progress? Go ahead.
So no, not at all. There isn't any reason why you can't eat after a certain time. A lot of people, based on their schedule or preferences, like to backload their calories, and their macros, and there isn't anything wrong with that. The one caveat I'll say is that some people notice that they maybe don't feel that good if they eat too much late at night, right? Like maybe it disrupts their sleep. And other times people notice that they weigh more in the morning if they're not accustomed to eating a lot at night. And so that bothers them. I personally eat almost all my calories at night. Not all of them, but more than 50%.
Right.
It works for me. My body is used to that. It doesn't affect anything. I prefer it. I like to have a big dinner, and I like to eat something before bed. Right. So I have no issue with this for anyone, and you're not going to get better progress if you eat your macros earlier in the day than if you don't.
Yeah, I think a lot of this comes from the old myth that was like, don't eat after 8, which I think is a well-meaning myth. And I think it could work for people who don't track, because it eliminates the opportunity. Yeah, it's like the gate is up. You can't eat after this time. What usually happens after 8 o'clock? Mindless snacking, not like vegetables and chicken breast, right? So just be mindful of how you feel. All things considered, if your numbers are the same, doesn't matter. But.
Yeah, and what I don't want people thinking, and what I think people the message that starts that, which is it always sort of comes back to what people think is happening with their metabolism. Yep. That somehow if you eat late at night, it's bad for your metabolism. Like, no, not a thing.
Yeah, it's wild out there. There's a lot of stuff out there that we have fortunately seen and can speak on. This is kind of talking about the one before. Diana says, I have a friend who insists the only way she can lose weight is 0 carbs. Hurts my heart to hear that. Hurts my heart to hear that too. And I think it's kind of ridiculous when it's like so absolute like that. What is usually happening in these situations is people are associating carbs to foods that are not necessarily carbs. They're foods that have carbs. And these foods are the cookies, the cakes, the chips, the junk food that many people eat. So when people remove carbs, they remove those foods, which are hundreds, if not thousands of calories over the course of a day or week, and then they lose weight. So it's not carbs, it's not fat, it's not protein. It's too much food somewhere. And go ahead.
Sorry if I'm echoing. Someone mentioned that. I didn't change anything, so it's just not in my control.
You're okay to me.
Okay.
To me, you're perfect. No, wasn't that the movie?
I was just going to say that sometimes when people say they're eating zero carbs, they're still eating fruits and vegetables. They're just thinking that those don't count as carbs or something.
Yeah.
So there isn't any way to eat zero carbs. It's just like, it's impossible. So anybody who says that they're eating zero carbs, I mean, unless you're just like flat out eating meat.
Yeah. But it's just her way of exaggerating. I believe.
Exactly.
Eating after workouts. Is there a best time? So great question.
It's a good question. Really good.
This is, I don't know where it started, right? It was like in the bro lifting circles where
I think the bodybuilding.
Yeah. It's like you gotta lift, or you gotta get your protein in and your carbs in right after your workout, or you're going to like wither away. Well, they found that it's not necessarily right after your workout. It's like hours within the time after your workout. So as long as you're having a meal after a workout relatively soon, which could be an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours after, you're probably going to get the most benefit out of it. It might not even be that big of a deal depending on who you are. So that just to, if anyone ever heard the term anabolic window, that's what we're referring to when people would say, oh, if you don't have protein or X amount of protein within 30 minutes, you may as well not have worked out at all. All your gains are going out the window. Don't bother working out. But that's just not true. So, it doesn't matter. Who knows? Maybe the supplement industry is the one that started that rumor or that myth. Pauline, good question here. You can't gain muscle in a deficit, or you can't gain muscle and lose fat at the same time. This is always my favorite topic. So there's some people that can gain muscle in a deficit. These are people that have probably are pretty new to lifting weights. Same goes for the gain muscle, lose fat at the same time. Most likely those are people that are new to lifting, but it could also be people that are recomping. That just means recomposition. It's a much, much slower process. It's a much more frustrating process for most people. I think someone that did this very well is Ariana. It doesn't seem like she's going through like bulking, cutting phases, which is like usually the way people do it. So I think for most people, if you're eating around maintenance and crushing the workouts, you can do it, but it's going to take a little bit longer. But it all depends on what you want to accomplish personally, what your patience threshold is, and lifestyle.
Yeah. But most people who've already been working out for some time and lifting weights, if you are in a deficit, you're not going to be putting on muscle while in that deficit.
Yeah. And that's because think of food as like the way to buy things, right? You need to buy muscle, and that costs money. So if you don't have money to get muscle, you can't really acquire any. So I don't know. I'm crazy. This is a good one. This will come up a few times here. Sugar substitutes are bad for you. What do you think, Winnie?
I don't think sugar substitutes are bad for you. I mean, I think this is something that we hear a lot.
It's controversial. Yeah.
It's very controversial. And we've had fights about it in the group, we've had some very heated arguments in the past.
Yeah. And just to be clear, we're not arguing with anyone.
No.
People have
been
very strong
strong opinions that they don't like, that they feel we promote artificial sweeteners, and that they're chemicals, and that they're toxic and bad, and how can we do that? And we share the same opinion on this, obviously, that anything that makes,
just to cut you off real quick, it's not even an opinion. This isn't an opinion. This is
fact.
The science.
It's a fact that we know, because we this is something that I'm going to be honest. I used to think that they were bad.
I did too.
Okay. So we can all admit that we have thought that, and we change our mind because we've spent a lot of time reading things from very smart people, scientists, looking at the consensus in the nutrition community from the researchers. And so based on all of that, we have come to this consensus, evidence-based consensus, that nothing bad is going to happen to you if you use artificial sweeteners in the way that most people are using them, having some diet soda, using, like, I don't drink diet soda that much, but I use like the sugar-free syrups in my coffee. I use them all the time, every day. Some sugar-free products are going to save you carbs, a ton of carbs. And so it makes our life easier on this program to use that stuff. And people enjoy their soda, their Diet Coke. Maybe it just keeps them on the plan, right? So we see it as a net positive and not a net negative. If you only think that putting something with chemicals in your body is bad, you're going to see it as a net negative. However, like, everything in this world is chemicals, and a lot of things that we eat are just, it doesn't mean it's bad, Chemicals I think people equate the with like a toxicity, but the amount of artificial sweeteners that you would have to put in your body that would maybe cause problems is quite a lot, impossible to consume perhaps by the average person, Now, if someone is sucking down 12 Diet Cokes in a day, I would probably say, hey, can we do something different? Like, that's a lot, just like anything in excess, even if it's not so like, you have to look at the context, but no, like, I don't think they're bad.
There's such an emotional response to Diet Coke. Like, it's so, and I get it, because I was there. I used to say, oh my God, this tastes like cancer. And it's like, yeah, but all the studies that showed any cancer development in mouses gave them like swimming pool sized like servings of this stuff. So Diet Coke here and there, probably not a big deal. Evidence says it's not for humans. But again, if you don't want to take it or drink it,
then just don't drink it.
Yeah.
But we're not pouring it down your throat, guys. Like, if you like it, drink it. If you don't drink it. But nobody has to come and be like, it's going to kill you. That's the part. That's when we start to get into those heated things in the group, when people are like, it's going to kill you. Then we kind of have to step in and say, no.
I mean, I've had people like insult like us because we were okay with members having it. And like you said, it's all about the net positive. If a Diet Coke replaces 40 carbs of sugar in someone's life and gets them moving in the right direction, holy crap, then it's a good thing. It's just like the piece of pizza. If that keeps you on the program and you're happy with a piece of pizza, cool. But no, you don't see many people shaming us because we said pizza's okay.
Right.
I mean, we have, but another one, intermittent fasting, good, bad. Is it for everyone? Should it be incorporated into Stronger You?
It would not be alive with you and me if someone did not ask about intermittent fasting.
Yeah, no, it's a super, this is like,
it came up a lot.
No one take this the wrong way, but this is a current fad right now. And fad just means like this thing everybody's going to do for a while and then bounce out. Intermittent fasting pretty much is just time restricted feeding. You have a certain window where you get all your food in. So for Stronger You people, by default, it's probably not the way I would suggest, because hitting macros in just a couple meals is really difficult. But for people that really struggle with hunger, like maybe as their numbers might come down, it might be a good way to adopt eating in the sense of hunger management, because you can push food to later in the day. But it's not like this magical thing. There's numerous studies that are coming out that are saying it's not better for fat loss. Fasting could have some health benefits, but that's like alternate day fasting, not necessarily just the skipping breakfast type of fasting. And even with that said, if you're going to get a health benefit from fasting and skipping whole days of eating, you could probably just get health other ways. So that's my thing with health, is like, it's not just what we eat or how we eat, it's how we live. And the things people do, or the extremes people go with nutrition in order to become healthy, when they ignore all this other stuff, is just sometimes silly. So yeah, not good, not bad. It's just a tool in the toolbox that might be used for certain situations. Yeah.
And I mean, I say this pretty much every time we're on one of these. I'd I don't eat breakfast, but I do the Premier Protein, or I do like 30 grams of protein in the morning.
So you break
with
your
my
fast.
coffee.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, people get all up in arms, like, oh my God, Winnie, like, you're breaking your fast.
It's not. I am not intermittent fasting, but I don't eat breakfast. I just have coffee with Premier Protein. So, do I consider that? Would someone maybe say that's a form of intermittent fasting? I don't know, maybe, but it doesn't matter. Like you said, for as long as you're getting your macros, it doesn't matter if it happens within a specific window. You're not going to get better results from that. Right. The only reason why we do sometimes suggest it is because people have that nighttime snacking issue. If we can get rid of that by cutting off eating at 7 or 8, then that helps a ton of people. And also a lot of people, like, they're not really hungry in the morning. So then why waste 300, 400 calories of your macros early when you could save it for later? That's my.
It's like, I used this analogy a couple of weeks ago. It's like keeping your window wide open in August. Like, more hot air is going to get in.
Exactly.
Hot air is the food. If you shut it like this, there's less of a chance of hot air coming in. So if you have
put that in your book.
Yeah. Oh man. Got to write that down. No, it's on Facebook somewhere. I'll find it. But yeah, it's just like it just helps people not eat as much. That's really why you see success when someone puts intermittent fasting into their diets. Not necessarily Stronger You, but like out in the wild, if you take someone doing whatever they want with food and then you tell them to just limit the food window, of course they're going to eat less.
Yeah.
Good one here. You can take this one, Winnie. Muscle weighs more than fat. What do you think?
Okay, so yeah, and I saw this came up a few other times in the thread, and someone said that. Okay, so muscle does not. A pound of muscle is the same, weighs the same as a pound of fat. Do they look different on your body? Yes, they look very different on your body. And if you put, muscle is denser and more condensed, right? Mm-hmm. Fat is like fluffier. So, there's a couple different things I want to point out. One is that sometimes people think their muscle is turning into fat. That's not happening. Two completely different, entities, right? So, muscle tissue is muscle cells are one thing. Fat cells is something else. But if you replace a pound of fat with a pound of muscle on your body, you will look smaller, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know, somehow the message of this got mixed up. It's like telephone game, right? Yeah. Where people say like that people started to think that, muscle weighs more than fat, but it's not, it doesn't matter what it weighs because it matters what it looks like, and I think that's or how it functions in your body and what the benefits are like. So I think this just got mixed up, and people say these words and what they mean is, I want to be leaner. I mean, that's it. What they mean to say is, I want more muscle, less fat, but somehow it comes out as like muscle weighs more than fat. And I think that some of this is about what people weigh on the scale, and they want to think that if they gained muscle, they're going to weigh. There's some miscommunication that's happening, but no, muscle doesn't weigh more than fat when you compare pound to pound.
Yeah, it's like saying, does bricks weigh more than feathers? Well,
yeah, no.
It depends how many you have.
But you're also comparing, apples to oranges, or you're comparing muscle to fat, and it's just two completely different things. So I'm not sure the value in like saying one weighs more than another.
You know what I think it is? I think it's when someone's having trouble losing fat, they insist that they might be gaining muscle. Yeah. It's most likely not the case. That
is us needing to get real with people and say, probably not happening unless you're making a concerted effort to gain, and it goes back to Pauline's question from before, can you gain muscle in a deficit? Yes, but it's not
most likely something that weighs a lot. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Working out fasted, why that may or may not be important. First of all, working out fasted is not going to burn more fat. Well, so here's the deal. This might get confusing, but all day, every day, we're building muscle, losing muscle, building fat, losing fat, using carbs, storing carbs. So it's all about what the net balance is over time. So if you work out fasted, you might burn more fat at that moment, but you will burn less fat later when you start eating again. So the net benefit of fasting workouts for fat loss just isn't there. And that's another old myth that people say, well, if I work out fasted, I'm going to burn more fat. And it's like, yeah, but it doesn't translate to scale, to body composition, to anything like that. So if you want to work out fasted because you don't like to eat breakfast before you work out, you're fine, because your body is basically like a storage tank for energy, and you will use the energy from the previous day for that morning workout. That is what I do a lot. If I'm working out, I don't, or if I work out early, I don't eat right before. So fasted working out is not going to really, it's not going to result any better results. If you like it, do it. If you feel like crap, don't do it.
Yeah. And I want to point out that part about feeling like crap. Like at one point in my life, my pre-Stronger You life, when I had a brief stint doing paleo, I lasted 4 days.
Yeah.
I tried to combine paleo, intermittent fasting, all sorts of things, at one point. And I remember I was doing CrossFit at the time. I went to work out, and I literally thought I was going to pass out because I hadn't eaten anything. And so, I think we have to be careful, like, with workouts and not eating. And, it's just not a good thing to necessarily not eat, anything for people, especially if you're already hungry. Like, don't not eat. Don't not eat in an effort to think you're going to get some sort of benefit out of fasted workouts.
Myth, you can exercise away a hefty diet. I mean, let's just look at how successful exercise is at weight loss. And I was talking to someone the other day about this, how big of a failure gyms and gym equipment really is for fat loss. And maybe it's not the gym's fault. Maybe it's a collective fault of all our own. But workouts just simply do not do what many people think they will. And that's why we have to control our diets. I think there are people that can out-exercise a bad diet, but those are people who basically have a part-time job in working out. So,
yeah. So, I mean, I think this question is tough because, well, what does hefty mean, right? Like, there's no context.
I believe that just means like a big diet, like eating.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we have to have calorie balance for whatever our goal is, right? So no, for most people, if you overeat, there's no way you can make that up with exercise unless you're like training for an Ironman or something, maybe. Yeah. But even that, I mean, we have clients come here who are overweight and have trained for Ironman because they did just that. They thought it didn't matter. They thought they'd exercise it all away. It doesn't happen. Yeah,
you'll never really, like, the amount of calories you need to burn to offset even like a few cookies extra on top of what you eat a day.
It's depressingly small. Yeah. Like it's a depressing amount of exercise to burn off food.
I mean, look at like when I started the mile run thing, like I took off and I'm in like the 8-7 minute miles and it's like 67 calories. I'm like, oh my God, like it's crazy.
I don't ride the Peloton that much, but I rode it last weekend for, 45 minutes. And it said I burned like, 100 to 150 calories. Like that is not a worthwhile, that is not a reason for me to ride the Peloton. No way.
This one, can you really eat all the fruits and vegetables you want and lose weight? No boundaries. Like you can eat 12 watermelons in 3-month period and see results on the scale. There's a few questions here, like, so 12 watermelons in 3 months, that's not that many to me. No. I love watermelon. But no, you can't eat endless amounts of fruits and vegetables. They still have calories. Yes, there might be fiber there and you might not digest or absorb all the calories like you would in a donut. But again, that's getting in the weeds of things that probably don't really matter that much. But yeah, this is kind of the Weight Watchers thing. They're like, free foods. Like, do you know how many bananas I can eat? Like 16. No, I don't know if that's true.
But yeah, I mean, the flip side of this is that, we do sometimes tell people, hey, get all your carbs from fruit and vegetables. And people find that they can eat quite a lot as long as that's what they're doing exclusively, not trying to fit in a lot of other things. But if you only were to eat fruits and vegetables, you could do great here, if that's how you got your carbs, if that's what you want to do.
I mean, I think if we're talking like macros or money, you're going to get more for your dollar with fruits and vegetables than you would like cakes and rice and pastas and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can't just eat endless amounts. What you might see is someone go from a regular traditional eating style to some diet that is just a bunch of fruits and vegetables, and they just reduced a lot of calories, and it's difficult to overeat a bunch of fruits and vegetables.
Right.
There's just not that, you don't have that like internal reward for eating broccoli like you do a pasta dish.
Right.
All right, let's try to speed some of these up. I don't want to like miss them. Do you need to eat within an hour of waking up to keep your metabolism moving? No, you do not. There's ebbs and flows all day long with metabolism. When you eat, it does raise a little bit, but that doesn't necessarily offset what you eat, and that's referred to as the thermic effect of food.
I feel like I was just going to say, I feel like we could do one of these on metabolism, because I think people have this they'd have a conceptual thought of what your metabolism is. That is they don't know what a lot of people just don't know what metabolism is. We think it's a thing that we can boost or break like super easily.
That's a question below.
But your metabolism is very complicated.
Yeah.
Like
it just means like all the processes.
It's like all the internal processes in your body, right? So you don't do anything good for it by eating when you wake up. Necessarily, you don't do anything bad for it by being on a diet. I mean, we have the down regulation, but not like in the sense that we break it. I mean, I think the breaking comes up maybe at some point here, but a lot of people worry they're going to break their metabolism.
So next one, if you have macros left over and aren't hungry, do you eat anything? It depends. So we never want to encourage people to binge eat and stuff their face if they're low on macros and need to make up for it. However, if this is an everyday occurrence or an all the time thing, we would recommend planning better, having these foods around you, thinking of different meal strategies in terms of replacing like high volume foods that stuff you to lower volume foods that you can get your macros in. And there's a reason, just like overeating can have negative effects, undereating can have negative effects, which are losing muscle, poor recovery, poor sleep, delayed hunger, which can encourage overeating later. So day to day, like you probably want to get close to your macros, but if there's a situation where you miss a meal because you have an important meeting or something, or something's going on with your kids and chicken breast and broccoli were the last thing you had to worry about, like just call it a day, have a pillow sandwich. That means sleep and you'll be fine.
Yeah. This question comes up a lot in the group where people will say, this happened today. I didn't eat all my macros. What do I do? And yeah, I 100% agree. Like one day of not hitting your macros, like I would not tell someone to force feed themselves if they're truly not hungry, if they're satisfied for the day and it's bedtime, like you can call it. But if it's like a consistent thing that's happening, that's different. And also we just want to always make sure, I mean, you and I have talked about this a million times. Yep. We want to hit the protein, really like that's the most important thing. If you're going to be under something, don't be under your protein. If on those days, if you can just eat something and hit the protein and be under the carbs and fat, that's okay. But yeah, when we do this over time and make a habit of it, then that's something to discuss with the coach. Like, are you full? Like, do you really need less? Can you get by with less food? And do we want to lower the macros and just match the intake to what's happening to the goals? Or, is there a reason why, like, sometimes members will think that they should make the deficit as big as possible.
I was going to talk about that. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Even if coach has assigned macros that equate to 1,400 calories, member thinks, well, I need to eat 1,200 because I should just eat 1,200, right? Or maybe I should eat 1,000 because more is better. And so, I always tell people, like, if we can get the results we want from 1,400, we don't need to, be at 1,200. We definitely don't need to be at 1,000. And so let's be at the highest amount of calories we can be at and see good results. Like, okay, obviously if we're not seeing good results there, then we need to adjust. But if we're seeing good results, we don't want to increase the deficit because I end up seeing more problems that come from that than benefits. Like, I sometimes see people who insist on keeping their calories very, very low, no matter what macros I give them. And then when it comes time for maintenance, they really struggle. They struggle to increase calories to a good amount that I think is where they need to be, because they're so used to under eating, and I don't think that's healthy, like in the long term. We want to eat like what is a reasonable amount of food throughout this whole process, and not be starving ourselves and then, have to figure out how to not starve later. Like that's not what this program's about.
Right. There's a few myths, or maybe they are not. Grazing all day is better than 3 square meals. That's something
I love this one.
I haven't really heard that one. I would say
this is another one that comes from, it's good for your metabolism to eat all day long.
Yeah. And you guys know how I feel about snacking. I think, if you're tracking and choosing healthy options, I think snacking is okay. But the habit of snacking, constantly eating, never really being full, can backfire a little bit. So I'm a meal person. I think most people should really focus on the meals. And then if they need help hitting macros, or they just really, really like a certain snack, maybe you could work it in. But that won't be any better. Next thing, reverse dieting. So little backstory on reverse dieting. What it basically means is, and this will give you some insight on how a little stronger you journey might take place. You start at a certain number. As time goes, you probably need to reduce, just because your body needs less calories to run when it does shrink in size a little bit. And then reverse dieting just means coming back up to maintenance. And you can do this very, very slowly, or you can do it quickly. There's pros and cons to both. Neither of them matter in terms of how much weight or your weight stability will be based on the speed, as long as you get it right. So if you go slow, you increase the chances of you decrease the chances of missing your mark. If you go fast, you might shoot above maintenance and then go into a surplus. So reverse dieting just means going back up to maintenance. You don't have to do it fast. You don't have to do it slow. You could alternate days, whatever. But yeah. This is a good one. You want to get this one, Winnie? Weighing yourself is a poor habit and not good for your self-esteem. And weighing yourself every day is even worse.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah.
So, there's some sections of the diet industry that are going to steer people away from weighing themselves. I don't want to attach any label to any group of people that does this. And for some people, weighing every day might be a poor habit. So I think there is context needed here. We cannot generalize and say it's a poor habit for everyone, or bad or not good for your self-esteem. I mean, there are people out there who, this may be the case, but in our experience, and the reason we have people weigh every day is because people who do weigh every day have better long-term success with weight loss and weight maintenance. Our goal for people is to use the scale as one tool in this process to help gather data, which can be shared with the coach, which informs us about fat loss, if that's the goal, right? Or maintenance, or without weighing, how would we do this program, right? It'd be very difficult. And so we want to weigh 7 days because it gives us an average. That's what I tell people every single day, every single week is we don't want to fixate on the daily fluctuations, but we need the daily data to get a good average for the week. And when we have a good average for the week, good because we've had 7 days that go into that average, as opposed to 1 day or no days, then we can watch the trends and look at, your average weight this week and this week and this week, and we can see what happens at different levels of food intake. Without weighing ourselves, we really don't know what's happening. We miss a vital piece. I know that there's a lot of people on this program who struggle with the scale, and you just did a live with Tracy about it 3 days ago, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's a lot of people they're this weighing themselves one day, it ruins their mood, and then they go mess up their macros. Or weighing one day makes them happy, and then they go mess up their macros. There's a lot of things that when we tie our value or our progress to the scale, if that is, influencing your decisions, then that's an issue that needs to be worked out. But as a tool for data collection, for showing us fat loss, it works very well. So, we don't want to throw it out. But I, again, just like we were talking about the diet soda, I was one of these people who thought weighing yourself was bad at one point. And I think I went a year in my life one time where I didn't weigh myself. What happened? I gained weight.
Yep. It's just what happens. But I think it's not a poor habit. It's actually a great habit because it gives you control.
Yeah. It gives you information, control.
Is our own story that we tell ourselves about the number. That's the thing we need to get over. That's the thing we need to practice getting better at based on all the things we know about why weight fluctuates.
Yeah.
There's movements out there that are saying the scale is bad. Don't worry about it. And it's like, if you look at it as a bad thing, but my bank account could look bad if I'm acting silly. It's not the bank account monitoring that's bad. It's that I'm doing things that I shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, and you not looking at the bank account isn't going to fix anything.
Right.
And
it might make it worse.
That's the part that I think is missing there. It's like if you throw away your scale and just don't look at it, you're removing something that you're just closing your eyes to a problem. And we don't want to generally close our eyes to problems. We want to address them.
And the research says if you weigh yourself often, you're more likely to be in better shape and be healthier. So
and we talked about this when we did our thing on maintenance like a month ago or whenever that was. Mm-hmm. If people stop tracking their food when they go off on their own without a coach, okay, but please don't stop weighing yourself. That's the part. That's how you can make sure that you're eating the right amount. Yep. Is if you keep weighing yourself. I tell people you don't have to keep tracking every day for the rest of your life. Of course not. But please at least don't throw your scale out the window. Don't smash it.
And it's a lot of it is like, it's such consistent, accurate data. When people say, don't weigh yourself, just go by clothes and the mirror. My clothes fit
my clothes fit me if I'm in 10 pounds and I'm a small person. So granted, I wear leggings and workout clothes all the time, but I don't think that's not a good way for me to know personally. And I don't think it's a good way for most people. So.
Yeah. It's just mentally we have to learn how to accept these numbers and understand what they mean. Yeah. Does eating late at night affect weight loss as long as you're keeping within your macros? Or
we talked about that before, right?
Are there protein, carbs, and fat you can eat past a certain time? The nutrition, this is what makes me so sad. We've had a few comments about nutrition experts giving some of the worst advice I've ever heard. The nutrition person at your gym says eating at night is bad, period. But eating carbs at night is the worst. They're wrong. I don't know. That sucks, think about that. I love fruit, right? I love it. I can eat it right before bed. Nothing happens. I feel great. I'm happy. I get my fruits and the world's a good place. So they're not, I don't like to say hey, you're wrong.
They're not right.
It's like, hey, person, where'd you get this from?
Yeah. But these are just sort of those, I don't know.
These myths that people hold on to. But again, I was talking to Krista about it. Think about the world. Think about all the information that's flying around. A lot of it's really wrong on every topic in the world. So of course there's going to be a lot of nutrition misconceptions.
Yeah. And this is where we have to get into some critical thinking and ask ourselves, okay, this person said this. What are some you can always ask the person hey, so how come you think that? Or what informs your opinion there? I think it's important to question people because sometimes they will literally not be able to tell you anything. They'll just say, well, I heard that or I read it.
I read it in a book. Okay. No one's monitoring. Here's the deal. I'm working on a book. I could pretty much say whatever I want. No one's going to say, actually, Mike, you're wrong. So if I put really
I wrote a book and same thing.
Yeah. If I put bad information in this, people that follow me will be like, oh, Mike said this.
Mike said so.
So this is the thing. And then the rumors start. So we're trying to come at this from like the most scientific, like practical place. When someone says all these things make you overweight if you eat them late at night, it's like, well, how do people become overweight? They have too much food. So if you eat food within your calories, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And a lot of times, I mean, I see these posts in the group, and when people say, oh, it's almost always someone at the gym told me this, or,
Yeah.
you know, it's the gym person. It's always that. But, you know, I think we had a comment once where someone was like, oh, somebody followed me out to my car and told me that me eating a banana or something was really bad for me. And it's like some of the things that people say just are ridiculous. And so you either have to say, hey, you know, where'd you hear that? Or you can just smile and be like, thank you. See ya. Yeah. You know, it's like, we just got to tell ourselves, we got to ask ourselves, okay, does this make sense? Is there any point of this that makes sense? And we can just kind of ditch stuff when we're like, I think that's wrong.
Yeah.
We don't have to believe the random gym people.
So this one says the few that we touched, you can't eat before bed. You can. You can't gain muscle while in a deficit.
We talked about that.
You can a little bit if you're new to lifting. Tracking calories in and calories out for weight loss.
Not a myth.
Not a myth. So this is actually really funny. There's articles out there that are like, tracking calories is a myth. It's like, no, man, it's just not as simple math as you think we're talking about. And it's not the case. Like the energy balance equation is 100% proven based on laws of science, not theory. But people think it means that we're saying like, hey, everybody's going to process 100 calories exactly the same with exactly the same foods. It's like, no, calories are calories because they're a unit of measurement. Food is not food. So it's just people that think calorie tracking, calories in and out is not real, just aren't understanding the dynamics of the equation entirely. So,
and that's essentially what we're doing here, right? So we know it's not a myth. Macros are calories.
100% not a myth. Calories in, calories out, or why bodies get bigger, smaller, or stay the same. Exercise matters to lose weight. Not really, but to an extent. I think lifting weights and doing some cardio will do people many favors. But if you want to lose weight, again, back up to the post right before, all you need to do is eat in a deficit. Obviously, that's not all we want you to do, because there's some other benefits that come from eating high quality foods at the right times for you specifically in terms of strategic purposes. But yeah, you don't have to exercise to lose weight, but you probably should exercise for health reasons and to feel your best and increase the chances of weight loss success.
Yeah, and also NEAT comes in here, you know, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Just being an active person is very helpful for losing weight and maintaining weight.
No carbs after lunch. Again, like these things, and this is where these myths come from. If I tell all of you, don't eat carbs after lunch, what's going to happen? You're going to eliminate so many foods that you enjoy that might get you in trouble. So you, by default, make things easier. So it's, again, we have to understand why these things work. It's not because it's no carbs. It's because it's fewer calories.
Yeah, but that's pervasive in some ways. Like I remember at some point, you know, I was hanging out with some family members and they're like, well, our nutritionist told us we can only have our carbs with breakfast. So we have our bagels now, and then we can't have any carbs later. And yeah, so I don't know where it comes from.
What's upsetting though is people that are going to college taking like licensed exams are
telling people this. Yeah, it's upsetting.
It gets me a little sad. This is a good one. Metabolic typing. Basically, that's like eating for your specific body, blood type, DNA.
Oh, blood type. I love blood type.
Not a thing. So there's like Winnie and I, we have different blood or whatever. Like a diet for her is not going to be much different than it is for me. Food kind of does what food does for pretty much all people. Yeah, there's some little differences and things like that. But for the most part, there's no special diets that we need based on who we are.
Yeah, and the blood type diet is a particular favorite of mine because, I don't know, some people know here, that you know, that I went to school for naturopathic medicine, and I don't, I didn't really practice at all, and I definitely don't now, and or accept and use any of the philosophies or many of them because there's a lot of problematic stuff there. But the guy who wrote the blood type diet is a naturopathic doctor named Peter D'Adamo, and that book was very, very popular for a long time on the bestseller list. And that was like more than 20 years ago, I think. And it was like 25 years ago. But it's been massively debunked. But that still comes up. Like people still say, well, should I eat for my blood type? And there's, I think people are drawn to sometimes those things because you get
exciting.
You get this list and you say, oh, well, okay, I need to eat these things, stay away from those things. That's going to solve all my problems. But it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. And here's what it comes down to. I think we all want to be special and unique, and we can be special and unique outside of the food we need to put in our bodies. Like, be the person you want to be, but don't think that you need some crazy special diet just for you. Yeah. You need certain amounts, you need certain strategies and all that fun stuff. And that's what we're going to do. But we're never going to say, oh, wait, what's your blood type? You need to eat this, this, and this at this time. No, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and the blood type diet, again, I fully admit that I did all this stuff. And that's why I don't tell anyone that you're dumb for believing this, because I believed it too. So the blood type diet, I'm blood type O. And I remember for that diet, it said, you should eat a lot of, you're good with meat. Whereas I think it was blood type A is better as a vegetarian. So, sometimes when you see something like that and you say, oh yeah, I like meat, or, oh, I don't like meat, then it sort of confirms your bias. It validates the bias that you maybe already have. And it tells you, oh, here's someone telling me that my preferences are really who I am. And it makes you want to do it more. But at the end of the day, it's not scientifically valid.
No. Yeah. Not good.
No.
Breakfast really the most important meal as it gets your metabolism started.
There we go again.
I don't really think there is a most important meal of the day. I think it might be your most favorite meal that helps you stay on track. But there's some I don't want to say conspiracy theory, but people think that this most important meal of the day breakfast thing was started by people that sold breakfast foods. So the pork industry that made bacon a thing, the cereal people, they're rumored to be the ones that really, really pushed that.
That's interesting. But again, I think maybe we should do something on metabolism at some point, but you don't start or stop your metabolism from food. Your metabolism isn't sleeping overnight. It doesn't need to be woken up. You don't boost your metabolism by eating foods or supplements or
but this is kind of where I think people hear a little thing and then it gets blown out of proportion. Yeah. So technically, when you eat, your metabolism does raise because it's digesting food. Right. But that doesn't mean
it's
fat
loss.
That means the chemical process is happening in the body. Yeah, it's
such a small amount that it is not perceptible in terms of your results for weight loss. I think that's where
the calorie deficit is always going to be the thing that gets the fat down.
Right.
These are good ones. Fat makes you fat. So. Again,
another one. I love this one.
So technically, nothing makes you fat but being in a caloric deficit, or a caloric surplus over time. But fat is the easiest thing that we eat that can convert to adipose tissue, to body fat. So that's a little bit of bringing you in on the inside. This is why we don't have people have tons of fat, because that will more likely go to body fat. It's the first thing in line. If you think of all the macros waiting to be added to fat, to body fat, fat's number one, carbs number two, almost never, and protein almost literally never going to be converted to body fat. Body fat is just a very easy thing to turn to, or dietary fat is a very easy thing to turn to body fat. That doesn't mean don't eat none, though.
Yeah, that's important. And so it's funny because fat makes you fat is a myth, but also the converse of that is there were some there were some books out there and about how you could eat all the fat you want and not get fat as long as it was certain fats, coconut oil. There were these other diets that were out, and paleo kind of played into this. So all of that stuff would just completely ignore calorie balance and tell people, if you just eat these things, but don't count your calories, blah, 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 you'll lose fat. But yeah, it's all just completely craziness.
Yeah. Yeah. Then first meal, last meal, doesn't matter. This is a good one. Metabolisms can be wrecked by XYZ, things like exercise, too much dieting, blah, blah, blah. So no, they cannot be wrecked long term. They can slow down, speed up, or stay the same temporarily. They're this super dynamic thing that's always going every which way. Too much exercise, which could lead to stress, actual emotional stress. These things can make weight loss harder. But a lot of times what's happening is the cortisol increases and you hold on to a lot of water. So metabolisms don't break. There's a lot of people that have done 1,000,001 diets and are like, oh my God, I broke my metabolism. Metabolisms don't break. Only vases and hearts break.
Yeah. And I don't know, I often look to look at the bodybuilding community. Those people spend their whole time gaining weight, putting on muscle, losing fat, gaining muscle, losing fat, doing that. And some people do that for, over and over and over. They don't break their metabolism. So, we don't either. But I do think there is metabolic downregulation that happens. And so the message gets confused a bit. And I think sometimes people who have yo-yo dieted a lot, they convince themselves that I broke my metabolism, so there's no hope for me. But that's not true.
Yeah. And that's a good thing. There's a lot of times that I think us dieters like to think, well, it's hopeless. This is the thing. That's the thing. This is the thing. It's no, usually it's our behaviors, our strategies, our hand to mouth, our food environment, and all that stuff. So the metabolism breaking thing, it's just be if I mess with my air conditioner unit, I turn it up, I turn it down, that doesn't break it. It just changes it.
Right. And the reason why we don't want to diet forever, stay in a deficit forever, is because we don't want to experience potential metabolic downregulation forever. We upregulate when we get out of a deficit. So that's why we don't want to keep our members, in a dieting phase forever. That's why we want to get you guys to maintenance as fast as possible.
You have to eat more to lose more. No. Another one about starvation mode. Here's this. I'm going to paint the picture for you. I'll use Winnie's name as an example. Winnie eats 1,200 calories and she's not losing weight. But what's really happening? Winnie probably isn't eating 1,200 calories because that number is intimidating and really hard to stick to. So when Winnie has 1,200 calories, she's so stressed out that it causes more eating, accidents happen, and she's not in a deficit, but more like accidental maintenance. So then what I do as a coach, I say, all right, Winnie, I think I know what's happening. Let's try 1,400 calories. So now Winnie has 1,400 calories and weight loss starts. But it doesn't start because she's actually eating 200 calories more. It starts because she's actually in the deficit now. And that number is less stressful. It doesn't cause her any issues in terms of hunger and stress eating and things like that. And then the weight loss comes off. So people just, they attribute the reason to finally losing to the more food, but they don't realize what that more food does. It makes being in a deficit easier. And when we think of each diet phase, deficit, maintenance, surplus, again, I say this all the time, but I'll repeat it again. They're like steps. So if 1,200 calories is towards the lower step of the deficit, 1,400 calories is still on that same flight of stairs. So.
Yeah, and I have this happen almost every day. I will notice that a member isn't, we're not seeing good things happen at the lower numbers, so I raise them up. and then they start losing again, but it's not because they needed more food to lose. It's because they needed to be more consistent and adhere better daily,
Yep. And then a lot of times with that raise, cortisol can
yes, absolutely
lower, and then the water weight.
We get that whoosh. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. There's a question coming up that I love, and I'm going to have all your backs, ladies. Let me get to that one first. Do men and women lose weight the same as long as they're in a caloric deficit? Hell no. We lose a lot easier than you guys. And that's because of a lot of hormones that you're dealing with that we don't deal with. And there's like a common joke in the fitness industry that dudes, you can accurately analyze their weight loss over the course of a few days or a week. Women, it's more like a month, because many people are dealing with the period. Stress hormones go up. Hunger hormones can go every which way. And you're not going to lose weight like we do. We are much more consistent with weight loss. And that means us as coaches, we have to understand that when we coach a woman versus coach a man, what we're looking at and how we're going to analyze that data is going to be much, much different. So I feel for you. I know it sucks. I really do. Winnie, anything else there?
No, I think you covered it.
I nailed it. No.
We are just far more complicated.
Yeah, it's tough. It is tough. But there's things we can do, like I've had situations where someone is like, hey, Mike, on my period, I really want to eat a lot of food. And I say, all right, well, maybe we can raise your calories a little bit. And it's fine.
Yeah.
It's like, I think what happens a lot of times is when someone is on their period and they're holding water, they think they're gaining fat, and then it encourages them to go off plan because why bother, right? But you're like a couple days away from coming right back down. So
and I always remind everyone, you can be losing fat even when you're retaining water. So this is very, very important. And this is a reason to not get so crazy when you see the scale up. If you have your period, it's like you can, as long as you're in a deficit, you're still losing fat. So don't get, it's important to not get despondent when you get on the scale. You see your weight is up, it's water because your period or maybe something else, but then people say, oh, the plan's not working, so I'm gonna binge today. But that's not how we want to be thinking. We want to tell ourselves, scale's up today, but I know I'm retaining water. I'm going to stay in my deficit. And like you said, a couple days down the road, I'm going to see this drop off, and maybe I'll be at a lower place. So, it's like, we just got to think critically again about what's happening. When your body's, just because the scale is up, that doesn't mean you gained fat. So,
yeah. Just ride it out. It's coming.
Yeah.
I missed this one. I'm sorry, Jana, if you're watching. There are good and bad foods. So not really, right? Like, food is kind of food. There's a lot of ingredients and things like that in certain foods that aren't in other foods. Those not necessarily a bad thing, but I don't look at it as good foods or bad foods. I think of it as like smart decisions and maybe less smart decisions. For example, if I need 50 grams of carbs, what's better, gummy bears or a bunch of fruit, right? I'm getting nutrients from the fruit that I might not get in the gummy bears. So that might be a smarter decision in that situation. But there also might be situations that's not a smart decision. And a situation like that might be when I eat mostly nutrient dense foods anyway. I live an active lifestyle. I'm happy and healthy, and I really just want some gummy bears. They make me happy, and I have them. And at that point, a textbook bad food might actually be a good thing. So it's all context dependent.
I agree.
Cool. Thank you. This one again, meal timing. You should plan your meals around workouts. Should I eat a certain amount of time before or after your workout? So again, like for most people, if general fat loss and feeling good is your goal, probably don't need to worry about meal timing as much. If you're trying to really gain muscle and trying to perform your best, maybe you want to have protein and carbs closer to your workouts, fat away from your workouts. But again, it's like maybe this much benefit. Like we don't really know what the ultimate benefit of it is. One thing I always say to people is don't let best get in the way of good enough. So in this case, if it's stressing you out to try to time meals so perfectly that you can't actually eat the amount you're supposed to eat, then that better thing is now a bad thing. So.
Yeah, I think that's really important because there was a time when we would, in our like nutrition guide, we sort of steered people towards a little more timing and stuff about workouts. And what we learned over time was it didn't help. It just confused people more. And it just detracted from our overall message of hitting macros. So we took that information out. And I think that was good because it did, when we try to do too many things at once and try to think that we can only get results if we are doing all those things, then we sometimes can't do anything right at all. You know, we can't like do the most important things. We lose sight of the forest for the trees or however one you put it, because we're paying attention to too many different details. But like you said, for certain people in certain contexts, we want to be more into the planning around the workouts. But for most people, it's not something that's going to make a very big difference.
Yeah. Try to get through these a little quicker. There's still a lot more.
Yeah. And I noticed there's some questions like on the side of my screen, like that have just come in today. I can't see who asked them, but I don't know. We might want to try and hit some of these if we have time, because I saw some good ones come in. Yeah. But we can go through the Facebook ones first.
Natural wines, are they better than regular wine? No, they're marketing. That's really it. They're marketing. If you're going to have some wine, I would probably recommend not having the diet wine because it's not really diet wine. Just have the regular, work it in the best you can. Don't overdo it and enjoy yourself.
Metabolism again.
I've heard that it's good to confuse your metabolism, eating higher calories every so often, so your metabolism doesn't get accustomed to a lower caloric intake. That is, so again, this is where these things come from, right? This has the genesis of this question comes from understanding how to manipulate leptin levels and increase calories to offset hunger and potential plateaus and physiological changes. So, but
it has nothing to do with confusing your metabolism.
No, it's not about confusing or anything like this. It's like this. I'm eating way low calories. My leptin might go down, so I'm going to be more hungry. I'm not feeling as good. So if I eat a few days of higher calories, particularly carbohydrate, I can reset some things, right? It's not about confusing or anything like that. It's just about resetting some numbers, essentially.
Right.
Your body burns more calories when you drink ice water because it has to warm up. Kind of. There's a lot of things like there's people out there that will basically freeze and try to lose more weight because their body has to, or the body's trying to warm it up. So they're burning a little bit more calories, but none of this is showing better overall fat loss. So while it comes from a place of science, it doesn't really translate to practical results. Foods can have negative calories because you burn more to digest it. Celery, again, doesn't really translate. Do appetite suppressants work? Some of them, sure. Set point theory. So there's set point and settling point. And this is not a theory. Everyone kind of has these internal regulators where their body tries to encourage their homeostasis. It's kind of like setting your air conditioner to 70. When it gets warmer, it tries to get back to 70. When it gets colder, it might shut off and let it do its thing. So a lot of people have these internal set points that you're pretty much always going to have to fight against. And this is a reason why long-term weight loss is tough for many people, because it is hard to always fight those things. The settling point. So the set point is more of like a physiological thing. The settling point is more of like an environmental thing. So set point is what your body naturally wants you to do. Settling point is the environment we live in and why it's so difficult to stay a certain weight. intermittent fasting, clean versus dirty, does it make a difference? No. So again, these books about intermittent fasting, there's clean versions and dirty versions. I don't even know what to say about it. It's people use these words to make everybody really confused and think these things are going to change something. Clean intermittent fasting means like only eating anything after a certain time. The dirty is if you have like a little coffee, a little creamer, a few calories prior to those eating windows. Again, doesn't make a difference. Calories in, calories out is what's going to make the difference for overall fat loss. I joked about this the other day because a lot of people, when I answer questions like this out in like internet world, they're like, yeah, man, but intermittent fasting isn't just about fat loss. And I'm like, oh, how silly of me to think that a splash of creamer is the difference between health and sickness. That's stuff like that's never going to matter. The negligible benefits of eating calories at certain times. Yeah, no, doesn't really matter. Talked about that a bunch. That's like the most common one.
Yeah,
like,
it's interesting how many people asked something related to that.
Yeah. Probiotics, prebiotics, value of supplements, as it's not always easy to meet my macro target and include these foods. I believe that getting them from foods will be better than supplements because a lot of the supplements can't survive through the stomach acid. You might know more than I do on that, Winnie. Feel free to mention anything.
I mean, for the most part, prebiotics is a little different. I mean, but there's some vegetables that are high that have some prebiotic activity, and probiotics, I think of most of those as actually being pretty low macro. So, I mean, certainly like if you do a Greek yogurt, non-fat Greek yogurt, you're going to get a lot of protein. That's got a lot of probiotics. And then there's a lot of things like kombucha or kimchi, like fermented vegetables. So there's a lot of ways I think that you could get probiotics in your diet that are pretty low carb and, very healthful. So I certainly eat a lot of foods. Of those foods, I think the jury is out. How they affect whether we can the effect of them inside the body is a little bit controversial. So what is active cultures outside the body and how it affects us once we've consumed it and it goes through the digestive process. That's something that is, there's a lot of people who say, we just don't know that how big an effect that stuff has.
Right. All right. Try to go through these speed round style. Body's holding on to fat because you're not eating enough. No, false. I always joke, like if you chain me to a tree for 3 weeks, come back, I'm gonna lose a lot of weight, and I'm not gonna eat anything. And that's kind of how this works. People just accidentally eat too much. They have some really good days, and then they have a couple bad days, and it all brings their calories up. Eating too much protein at one time, your body can't use it all. So
that's a good question.
Kinda. Say I eat 80 grams of protein, right? It's sitting in my gut. It's basically like people in line for a roller coaster. If there's 3 people in line, they all go on, right? They all get to ride the thing. If there's 500 people in line, they all got to wait their turn. And that's kind of how protein works. It's going to sit in your gut. It's going to get absorbed over time. So it's not necessarily going to get wasted, but it's not going to get digested at the same time. And that doesn't really matter. You probably, if we're talking perfect way to eat protein, 4 to 6 times per day, pretty evenly spread out. And that's just to get the most value of the muscle protein synthesis. In other words, for protein to do what protein does. But again, not the biggest deal. If you can split it up, probably best, but try not to get like a ton at one point if you don't have to. Yeah,
I think that's a good point. So for most people, this is the amount of protein that you can like absorb at any one time is relative to your body weight. So like a bigger person is going to be able to, a bigger person's protein needs is going to be higher, than a smaller person's protein needs. So for the most part, there's like a wide range though of what's healthy and for protein. I mean, we get this question a lot, like how do you guys set protein? So there's, we have our ways where we start your protein, but sometimes we'll bring it down based on what someone's preferences are. Sometimes we'll bring it up, but we always want protein to be set in a place that's going to give us the best chance of maintaining muscle mass, right? That's one of our main goals. Protein also helps with some other stuff like satiety and, it just gives us good results on this program, So, but the amount to eat at once, I agree, it's better to split it up fairly evenly based on what your macros are across the day, like 4 meals and snacks, or maybe for some people it's going to be 5, but most people get the best results from that rather than just like eating all their protein at dinner. That's probably not what we want to do.
Carb cycling, I read conflicting info on this subject, so it depends why you're asking. For carb cycling to do what it does best is probably for like endurance athletes who might need higher carbs for certain days. For general fat loss, doesn't matter if I have high carb some day, low carb other days. I'm not going to get different results as long as those other numbers on average are the same. So carb cycling a lot of times, and I've done this to many, many people, it's a little trick we use to make life easier and to get you to do what we really want you to do. But yeah, I got a side question the other day from one of our members that said, other programs will make you do high carb, low carb days. Why is that? Are they more trained in the application of nutritional science? And it's like, no. They're just trying to be fancy so people think they're getting this like special stuff. And that really is like what it's all about. It's like, hey, I'm going to make you follow this thing and do high days, low days because it's exciting and it gets you to adhere. It's not going to be any better.
No.
When someone older claims you need some fat on you just in case, I discuss it because I know where my next meal is coming from. I get you. Yeah. So people might say, hey, you need a little fat on you. It's good for you. Well, yeah, if we're cavemen and we don't know when we're going to eat again. So we know where our next meal is coming from, most likely. We're all very lucky if we're here. So yeah, you're probably not like unhealthily skinny. So you're fine, Rob. This is an interesting one because this comes up. Diet Coke makes you fat. No, it has 0 calories. So it literally cannot do that. What sometimes happens is, just like any food can, it can encourage other decisions. So if you have a Diet Coke and you're like, ooh, sweet, I want more, and then you have more, that's the stuff that could make you fat, not a 0 calorie drink.
And I think that this myth comes from there's some information floating around related to like insulin. and that if you eat something that tastes sweet, even if it doesn't have sugar in it, it raises your insulin levels. And I think that's where that comes from because this is connected to that Gary Taubes or whatever thing about insulin making you fat, and which it does not. So,
right. And to think about that too is insulin is like, I wrote this down. I got it in the chamber to post up, but it's like insulin is like the dam, right? It doesn't matter if it's open if no water's coming through. Like if the dam is there, it's just irrelevant because water would be like the fat coming down the river, and it's just you can't hold fat or gain fat when there's no excess there, no matter if insulin goes up or down.
Yeah, and protein raises insulin, which a lot of those anti-carb people just conveniently omit. Yeah. So it's like carbs are not the only thing that raises insulin. So it's and insulin, I don't know, it's not always bad. So yeah, it's just like just a bad thing.
Yeah, it's like you're fighting the wrong fight. If you're going after insulin as the reason of people being overweight, and you're ignoring the food environment we're living in and how easy it is to overeat,
then you're an insane person. Yeah,
that's the battle. So some programs give total calories and daily protein, but say it can be flexible with your carbs and fats as long as they fit into your daily calories. So depends what it's all about. If you're trying to lose fat, yeah, you can. Fat and carbs are pretty much interchangeable, but each one of these still does a certain job. So you still want to worry about performance. You still want to worry about behaviors. You still want to worry about food education. So if I tell someone, hey, just hit calories and protein, I don't care what you think or what you do with carbs and fat. People can do some kind of wacky stuff, So it's just our way of reining it in a little bit. And there are a lot of people that when I work with them for a while, I'll say, hey, calories, protein, you're good to go with your carbs and fat. So everything depends on why you're asking, what question are you trying to answer, and what other things are involved in that question.
I will say that back when traveling for work was a thing, this is a strategy that does work well for a lot of my people. The calories and protein, and being more flexible with the carbs and fat as long as we stay in a deficit. That was working very well. But I don't. That's it's contextually relevant for those certain situations where we can't maybe control our macros as much, where we're not cooking for ourselves. Then we can be more flexible.
And this question is the one that
broke our hearts.
Oh man,
so much.
A dietitian. So a dietitian, someone that went to college, someone that passed state board exams, someone who should be looked at as an expert, told this person that when she found out, or he found out, that this member was eating 100 grams of protein a day, they said, I should only eat 50 grams because all the protein I eat will turn to fat regardless of caloric intake.
I'm so sad.
That might be the worst. I mean, you can see my reaction. The worst advice I've ever heard.
It's bad.
It completely ignores what protein does. It completely ignores the laws of science in terms of fat loss. Protein pretty much can never turn to fat. In a caloric deficit or in a caloric surplus, if you're eating too much food, dietary fat will be what turns to fat. Protein it never even needs the chance to turn to fat. That is just so false. I try to give people the benefit of the doubt and think, where did that information come from? What made this dietitian think that those extra grams of protein were going to just turn to fat? Oh,
and we do get this question, and I saw it kind of came up along. Anyway, I see some questions on my feed that are from today. So somebody said, how do we set our macros in a deficit? And so this is kind of related to that. And also someone asked, why do we eat more carbs than protein? So there are some questions that are maybe a little bit related to protein and why we set the numbers they are. I don't know if I can answer them all.
Yeah, go ahead.
I can try. So protein, like I mentioned earlier, there is a range of protein that has been determined to be like safe and healthy for people in a diet, right? And there's no one number, and there's no one formula either that we use to determine macros. Because I think someone asked, do you guys use a formula to set macros? So no, I mean, personally speaking, as a coach, what do I do? I mean, what do I do? How do I set macros? I get someone's sheet and I look at their body weight and I look at their goal at, if it's fat loss, and I see, how tall are they? Like what size, make a guess as to their size. And then, yes, I don't use a formula. Like I'm not using a calculator per se, but there are formulas that we know that inform us to tell us, well, what is a good estimate of this person's maintenance calories, right? So that's what we mostly are. That's my first thing. What is this person, what do they need to eat to maintain, right? From there, I determine what I believe is a good deficit for them to get started with the program based on what I glean about their lifestyle from the intake form. And then from where I see the calories what is required for a deficit, I determine their macros based on what I know of what is a good macro set for average woman or the average dude or, whatever. I make a guess. It's
on working with
400, 500, however many people, right? So, but our macros that we start with, it's a place to start, right? And then we have to see what happens. What happens in real time when someone eats these numbers. And then I might make adjustments from there. And I ask questions, hey, do you like this amount of protein or fat, or would you like more? We can make some swaps here, but it's always about the calories, right? And so specifically speaking, your protein needs are related to your size. So, someone's protein who is 200 pounds I'm going to give them a different recommendation than someone who is 125 pounds, because a 200 pound person needs more protein relative to their body weight. And there are percentages that I use to determine that. But again, there's a range, and I think I might do this wrong, but it's like 0.7, I personally, like I say, okay, 0.7 grams per pound of body weight. Like that's like on the lower end of where, or maybe that's a good place to start someone. But then some people like to eat way more than that. And that is safe and healthy. You know, you can eat like 3 grams per pound, I think, of your body weight. No, maybe it's 3 grams per kilo. And it's safe. It's been determined safe. So there's a wide range here of what is safe. And we have to find the place that is good for your preferences, good for your adherence. You know, there's a lot of things that come into play there. The RDA for protein is very far below where we set people's protein, but I think that could be what this 50 grams comes from. That might be the RDA for like the average woman, right. But the RDAs are not developed for thriving. They're developed for surviving. And we don't want people to just survive. We want people to like do this deficit and be feeling awesome, right? And maintain muscle mass is so important. Okay. You can go in a deficit and eat terribly, and then eat no protein, but like, are you going to lose fat, or are you just going to lose water and like muscle and other parts of your body that you don't want to lose? You know, there's a lot of your body is fat-free mass, and we want to maintain that as much as we can. And the muscle is in there. So protein higher helps us maintain, you know, muscle and fat-free mass, and we want to lose fat. So we want to be in the deficit the best place that allows for that. Why are carbs higher than protein? Just because it's not because carbs are higher than protein. It's just the way we set the macros.
Yeah, not this. They have nothing to do with.
Sometimes carbs are going to be lower than protein. Yeah. By the way, when you get in a deficit, maybe as we go through the program, we're going to find that someone's carbs need to go down. Someone could be at 85 carbs and 115 protein. So we can't say that you always are eating more carbs than protein. Sometimes you're not gonna.
All right, I'm going to hit Kathy's question right here. This is a good one in the thing here. It says, if I'm in a deficit but able to lift heavier, aren't I gaining muscle? So no, not necessarily, because you could just be getting better at working out. Neurological adaptations could just mean, hey, like my body knows how to move more. Let me scroll a little bit. Gluten and thyroid disorders. Not sure what the question is. Gluten is only bad for people who have gluten intolerance or some kind of aversion to it. People like me, I could crush bread and pasta and feel perfectly fine. So gluten inherently is not a bad thing. It's only bad for people that it's bad for. Thyroid disorders. Actually, this is something that I deal with. I have not technically hypothyroidism, but pretty close. So I should be losing.
I didn't know that, Mike.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really talk. It's not a big deal. And this is kind of the thing. Like, I might need fewer calories than if I didn't. And that's kind of the thing. Like a lot of people that have these thyroid conditions, like it's not impossible to lose weight. It just might mean you need a fewer less calories. Yeah. The energy balance equation still matters, but it's just a little bit different of a number set.
So possibly that question also so some thyroid disorders are autoimmune. And so there is some evidence that some people, certain foods are going to act as an inflammatory, they're going to cause inflammation, but that's not really something it's not something I do as a coach in terms, for this, in this program. The dietitians maybe address some things like that, but I think that's on an individual basis. There are tons of people who have autoimmune hypothyroid issues or other autoimmune issues who probably can eat gluten, and there may be some who can't, but that, like you said, that's an individual thing.
Carbs, we get X amount of carbs per day, but other diets count different types of carbs different. What are the net carbs? So net carbs are just difference between regular carbs and sugar alcohols and some carbs from fiber. So just count all carbs, make your life easier. Not really going to make a big difference there. Max amount of protein the body can absorb. Again, just like we talked about a few minutes ago, the protein is just in line. It's going to get digested and absorbed over time. It just has to wait its turn. This is a good one. I have a big event coming up, the 4th of July, where we know we are going to splurge a little. Okay to save a few macros from each category for the few weeks before. Bad idea. How many can we save without being too far under? You don't need to save for weeks. You might be able to just adjust things a couple days out, if even necessary, which might not be. Overall, like if you're doing well most of the time, a few days here and there, like I'm not gonna adjust my entire life leading up to these things. Just have a good time. Maybe see what you want to do the day before, the day after, if it's even necessary. Understand what's going to happen after a splurge, which you're probably going to retain some water, probably not really going to gain some fat. And then a couple days later, it'll be back to normal. So,
yeah, I never recommend saving up ahead of time. Sometimes people may want to adjust a little after if they're like not as hungry after they've had some days like that. But I think it's better to just do the thing and manage it after. But yeah.
Yeah. The older you get, does your metabolism slow down? How to speed up your metabolism? Read a few things on this. So, okay. So technically, I believe it's after 30, like every
I think it's after
years,
20.
Or, okay. So 20, whatever it is. Yeah. Your metabolism can slow a little bit, but it's so minor. So when people say I'm at a certain age and I can't lose fat or stay in the same shape I could when I was like 17, 20, 30, whatever it is, it's because life is different. It's not necessarily because you're burning that many less calories. It's because you're just you're not burning less calories because of the lifestyle you live now. You don't move as much. You might not have as much muscle. Your movement might not be as efficient, so you're not burning as many calories. So yeah, metabolisms can slow over time, but just because of age, it's not really that much. How to speed it up: stay active, eat your protein, be healthy, and you should do yourself some favors there.
Yeah, and don't always be in a deficit, like be in maintenance, that when you're in maintenance and you're active, you can, that's good for your metabolism.
And menopause, like I'm not sure what the question is.
It just says menopause.
It's harder. Yeah, it's harder. It's just going to be really hard. People have hot flashes. People can't sleep as well. People have wacky hunger. So again, you can absolutely lose weight. Like it's not technically much different in terms of like the calories in out equation, but a lot of times your fat allocation on your body could be different too. So you might say, oh my God, I'm gaining fat like I've never gained. It might just mean it's going to places that it couldn't or didn't before, based on how the hormones encourage where that goes. Question: if you've dieted in some form or fashion your whole life and you are now truly eating in a tracked calorie deficit, no cheating, and you're not losing weight, has your body's metabolism fatigued to the point it no longer works properly? If so, should one refeed to try to reset things? So, all right, Jeffrey, if you are technically in a deficit, you would lose weight. So it might be slow. You might be masking fat loss by retaining water. But if you were in a true deficit, you would lose fat. But if you feel like you're in a deficit, you're just kind of exhausted, you're sick of it, whatever, maybe you can eat in maintenance for a little while. The refeed, talking about resetting things, that's pretty much like changing the leptin levels and making sure that your hunger is pretty much where it should be. Maybe cortisol can reduce as well, and your water weight will come off, and then you'll start seeing these things. So what I think happens a lot of times with people is they are in a deficit. They're on the cusp of seeing really great results, but water retention is masking those results. And when they eat a little more, the water can flush out. It's not the fat is already gone. The water's just kind of holding place. So that could be that. But there is no like long-term dieting, broken metabolism thing like that. And there's no one that will literally be in a deficit and not lose fat. It could just be that we don't realize the fat loss. Is adrenal fatigue a thing? So no. This is a thing that a lot of naturopaths say your adrenals are fatigued. Well, I mean, I think it's just semantics, and they're using words that might not be what they are. A lot of times this is the cortisol thing. Your stress hormone is just jacked up, and you're holding a lot of water, and you're feeling like dog poop. But again, like adrenal fatigue, if I run around saying, no, you're wrong, there's no such thing, I just sound like a jerk. So, technically, maybe not a thing, but it's just how we're defining things. loading up on tons of saturated fat and everything, and keto in general. Also curious whether intermittent fasting has any true benefit. When do you want to take that?
Well, I think, did we kind of answer this?
Yeah, intermittent fasting, like nothing special. Yeah.
But sorry, what was the thing about the saturated fat? I can't see the question.
Loading up on tons of, basically, I don't know what the question actually is, but maybe like what happens if you eat too much saturated fat?
Oh, like as a good or a bad? I mean, in general, we don't want to, she said saturated fat, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't want to eat a lot of saturated fat. That is not necessary. That is definitely like not, science is not showing that to be good health wise.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. More negative calorie stuff. So yeah, again, maybe like a cucumber, like your body.
Grapefruit. I think there's some stuff about like grapefruits. Yeah. It's not really any such thing as negative calorie foods. If that's
it's not gonna, the amount that it might burn is not gonna, you'll never realize that in terms of like your body composition. Menopause effects on weight. We talked about that. Why exercise may or may not affect the scale, and why. It may affect the scale if it's helping you get into a caloric deficit. It may not affect it if it's encouraging you to overeat and reward yourself with more food. It's basically just about the calories at that point. Why lack of sleep makes the scale go up. Could be water retention, could be hunger, could be irritability that leads to more eating. Just fatigued, you might not recover as well. So when you're not recovered, your body isn't like burning fat as well.
Sleep, get your sleep.
Yeah, get the heck to bed. I sleep like I feel like a pound of anything. Oh, that's about muscle pound. Yeah.
I think she was just clarifying, I think, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, that was in the regular thing. So that was just another question about it. Are there specific exercises that truly speed up your metabolism? For example, I always hear Peloton instructors say during Tabata that it increases metabolism. Go ahead, Winnie.
Oh, I mean, I think this is also like the high intensity interval training. Yeah. I just don't think it increases it to the amount that we're going to see anything,
That's it. Yeah. I think there's studies that show that like, this made people burn a few more calories.
It's so small. It
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It never really, like, you'll never see, just like working out for specific heart rate for fat loss. It's like, okay, but you're never going to see
fat burning zone or something.
Change. Yeah. When do you see exercise impacting macros? There's all the time. I guess that's the best way to say it. Like every time someone however someone works out is pretty much factored into our macro allocation. But people that would really need different ones are mostly the endurance athletes, the one that are really burning a lot more calories. Someone like me, if I run a mile or two every day, I'm burning a couple hundred. Like I'd probably burn similar if I just went for a walk or moved around the house. So it's really when those exercises burn so much more that we either need to replace some or fuel enough so people don't get any fatigue. Yeah,
and like what you just said in terms of the like replacing or for most coaches, I think like once someone is doing like sustained endurance exercise past 1 hour, we will usually recommend like, hey, we need to you need to replace, but it's.
But again, that is an interesting one too, because that came up. It's like someone they weren't clear on it, and it was like they went over like 57 minutes, and they were like, I ran a little bit more to get extra macros, and that's defeating the purpose.
Yeah, so
like 3 more minutes doesn't equal more.
No, and it's not it's what you do in that second hour. That's what needs the extra food, right? It's not just that you got to 1 hour.
Good point. Yeah, that's a very good point.
It's like, and we would like prorate the macros for that second hour, right? Like if someone's only eating 1.5, if someone's running 1.5 hours, you don't need as many extra carbs as someone running 2 hours. Right, so, we try to give people the instructions for that, but it can be confusing. And generally though, well, like I work out, I strength train. If I'm training for 2 hours, like I don't quote unquote get more food for that because like I'm resting so much during during my sets of lifting. So I'm not doing sustained exercise for an amount of time that requires me to eat more in that context. But someone who's running for 2 hours straight, they may need more carbs for that second hour of activity that they did.
This one says, this is interesting. I've heard a lot that running will lean you out quicker than cycling or other forms of cardio. No. It just could mean that someone, I always wonder where these things come from. Like someone's just burning more calories from their runs than they were other forms of cardio.
Yeah. I mean, look, people who cycle a lot are going to look different than runners. I mean, you're going to have, it's going to build your leg muscles in a different way, potentially. But some of that's genetic, like what you're going to look like from doing these things. And some of it is how you're doing things. I mean, a cyclist who goes up hills is going to maybe look different than someone who's not. Yeah. I don't know. It's too different.
Like it's hard to say like this is better than that. Yeah. Water. How do you not have to drink 1,228 gallons a day to achieve results? I am lucky to drink 50 ounces of any liquid. Should I drink more? Probably, but it doesn't hurt my progress and I'm still healthy and there's no need to stress about it. So how do you know it's not hurting? That's the question. How much better could things be if you did have more than 50 ounces of any liquid? I think a lot better. Could be skin, could be digestion, could be sleep. You don't have to overdo it. Like if you're peeing every 5 minutes, you're overdoing it. But if you're only drinking 50 ounces, I don't know, maybe have a little bit more. But
also I want to point out that nowhere in what you just said was that about fat loss. So a lot of this is about health, right? And I don't want people to think that they're not going to lose fat if they're not drinking enough water, because that's not really a thing. Like, it's not going to impede your fat loss progress. There are body processes that require water and hydration for sure. Mm-hmm. But I don't want people thinking like, well, if I just double my water intake, I'm going to lose more fat, because that's not going to happen.
Yeah. I heard you were supposed to do weights before cardio to lose fat quicker. So here's how I think of that, right? Where do I want or need the most energy? Probably in terms of intensity, I want them for weights. So if I'm trying to think of which one I do first, I'm probably going to lift weights because I can run or do cardio on a slightly fatigued body. I can't lift weights to the effect that I want on a slightly fatigued body. So in that sense, maybe it's better because you can be more efficient at both of them.
But it's not really going to affect your results. Again, like I think we get we start to think these details are going to like affect the fat loss progress, and the order in which you do those things isn't going to affect that.
But think about why, like it might affect it, right? And for those reasons, like if Mike can't be efficient at weights because he ran 3 miles, then maybe a swap would be necessary. Are the carbs in sugar-free products real? Funny way, Jordan, to ask that. Real in what sense? Like sugar alcohols are not really sugar. So not real sugar. I don't know if that helps.
Right. And that question comes up a lot about how to track those. Like there's some beverages out there that'll they say they have no calories, but then they have some carbs. And so that gets confusing from people, but that is often because it's the sugar alcohols that's what they're sweetened with. And those are like not really counted. They're not really digested by the body. So I think like I usually tell people track a few carbs from those drinks, 3 carbs, I don't know, but it's not crucial. Like that's not going to impede your progress having that drink. So we don't have to get too hung up on those details.
I'm going to hit a question over here from Anu. Are the last 5 to 10 pounds really hard to lose, or is this something we make up in our head? No, that it is hard to lose the end. And I want you to think
that's not a myth.
I want you to think about it like this. I thought about this the other day. If I was an artist, I would draw a pretty picture. If I run around with a full glass of water or coffee in this, it's really easy for me to spill that extra weight. But as time goes down and the coffee or water gets really low, it's harder to get that coffee out of the top. And that's similar to this stuff. And it happens, I posted, there's like 11 reasons why this happens. Metabolic adaptation, we get bored and we get complacent. That amount to lose, like the last few pounds, is probably towards the end of a deficit, and your calories might be lower, so you don't have that insurance to mess up like you used to. So yes, it is harder to lose the last few pounds. There was a post probably a couple months ago, maybe a month ago, in the Peloton group that literally asked, hey, should I do Stronger You? I have 3 pounds to lose. And I actually told her no. Which was weird because what business is like, no, don't pay me money. But I told her, I said, you might be in a really good place. Like, what is 3 pounds going to get you? I don't know. If you want to like come here and learn about food and do all that stuff, hell yeah, let's do it. But don't come here just to lose 3 pounds, because it's going to be hard. It's going to be a pain in the ass. You're going to get it. And then you're going to be like, well, what now?
Yeah. And I want to point out back to this, the last 5 pounds thing. A lot of times people get in a situation where they are spending weeks and weeks and months attempting to stay in the deficit to lose 5 pounds.
Yeah.
And that puts us in a very uncomfortable situation where we see the person accidentally maintaining for months at a time when all they're trying to do is lose 5 pounds. And so a coach, I will always tell people, hey, let's purposefully maintain. Let's just purposely maintain. We can deal with this 5 pounds later if we decide it's an issue. But I never want people to get in this bad mental cycle of like, I can't lose this weight. I've been doing this for a year to get this 5 pounds off, and I look at my summary page and I'm same weight. It's like, and look at my calories, they're so low. That makes like a bad mental place for everyone, you know? Yeah. So I'd rather see someone intentionally maintain when you have that, and we can still maybe lose weight when we raise the calories, right? Because then we get into that adherence is better situation, and maybe we can be on the very low end of maintenance, and some days you're eating in a deficit because you just don't need all the food. I feel that's a better place to be in that situation.
It's like the rest stop. Like stop. Like if you keep falling asleep at the wheel, like
you should take a nap.
Get off the next rest stop. That's maintenance. Be refreshed, then get back on the road.
And there's nothing wrong with that. You didn't fail because you you missed your goal. I mean, that's why we tell people, let's not be wedded to this goal weight. You know, that's not nothing. Your life is not going to change at that weight. You know, you can be happy.
I have a blog I'm going to work on about Lego and results. It's going to blow your mind, Winnie.
I can't wait.
It's going to blow your mind. No, I'm telling you, I was like, oh my God, Lego is, and I say Lego because apparently saying Legos is wrong.
Oh.
So I got shamed by the Lego community. It's always Lego. So,
I didn't know.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't feel right saying it. I like to say Legos.
You mean there's no plural of Legos?
No, it's Lego. It's like deer. It's like it's never deers. It's always deer.
That's so interesting.
Someone just learned that, I bet. No. Does eating too much protein increase weight gain?
We answered that, right?
Again, yeah. It's only if that's the thing that's putting you into a surplus, and then even that, the protein isn't what's going to be the fat. It's the dietary fat, most likely, that would convert to body fat. But still, it's rare. And if you're really, really hungry, you can't get to sleep and you're out of macros. Like my advice is, if it's like sleep or hitting macros, like I'm going over macros with lean protein and getting the heck to bed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pauline is setting me up for a funny question here. She says, I still think it's a myth that boobs get smaller as you lose weight, down 80 pounds, and I'm waiting for that day. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of body fat there. So when we do lose body fat, that is a place that could change. So
I think this just depends on the person. You know, some people, if you get to keep your boobs, then, you know, some people would tell you get the best of both worlds, right? And other people are like, I want it gone. Sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. You know? And that doesn't work anyway because I have headphones.
Yeah. I don't have any. I don't really have boobs, so I never experience anything either way or another. If I lose fat or don't, nothing changes there. But a lot of people will say that they lost their boobs, so it does happen.
Yeah. Carb loading before big events, yay or nay? So kind of depends. Depends on what the workout is. But I will say, and I've learned this from Alex Viada, who is probably one of the smartest guys that I know in terms of all this stuff. I used to think that the dinner before the next morning was the most important thing. Like I used to think you had to blast carbs in your body right before like bed so you could wake up fueled for your event. But the thing is that you don't digest and absorb those calories from that meal to use for that next morning event. There's just not enough time for the digestion process to happen. So usually like lunchtime the day before should be the bigger meal. In terms of carb loading specifically, might not have to be too many more carbs than you usually eat because you might already be fully charged. So I like to think of like our body and our muscles and our liver in terms of glycogen distribution as like a battery pack, right? Or a toy with battery packs. Your body is holding all this energy and it's ready to use and it's stored it from the days before. So you might need some more carbs. You might not. One of the best pieces of advice I can give for people that are curious for eating for endurance is don't change too many things because sometimes people start loading up on all these foreign foods. And when I say foreign, I don't mean from different countries. I mean foreign in terms of not normal for your body. And then you get some like GI distress and you don't feel very good and you have the bubble guts. And we don't want you to have the bubble guts when you're running.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, for me, like when I work with people and they have a marathon, like it's not just about increasing carbs the day before. It's usually like a stepwise thing across a few, the week before it might be increasing their calories so that they're in a good place and don't have to like eat so much the day before. And that's just going to make more comfort. Because it's actually like if you actually like put a ton of food in your body, like you're not going to be that comfortable. It's, like
running with more weight, more digestion is taking place. It can get a little wacky. Yeah. This is a really good question from Nancy. And this is going to be a good answer, I think. We'll talk about this a little bit. She says, I am very interested in the entire concept of net carbs and whether eating more fiber has greater impact on weight loss because the way your body processes fiber. I know I've probably been around too long to be asking this, but I'm in a cut right now on my own for readers. And I've noticed a fast drop and wonder if it's associated with my high fiber intake. So we have to think about this. How many calories per gram does fiber carbs have versus like pasta carbs? It has fewer. Some might say like 1.4 to about 4-ish. And these numbers are all just estimates. And everybody digests things a little bit differently. So I'll use this example. If Nancy eats 100% of her carbs from bagels for like a month, and then Nancy eats 100% of her carbs from like vegetables, her results would probably, in terms of fat loss, be better if she ate the vegetable carbs because she's not absorbing as many calories. But that's not to say that you need to just eat all these vegetables. Overall, calories are still important, but depending on where you get them from can change how you absorb them and utilize them and ultimately how that affects your results. They're not really always created equal, but in most cases, no one is ever on one end of the spectrum or the other. Everyone usually mixes. Like some people have rice, potatoes, pasta, cookies, cakes, a bunch of vegetables, a bunch of fruit. So really, the practical carryover probably won't be much unless you're at one end of the spectrum or the other.
I will say that there are lots of examples of people who say, who've done a program, and many of my clients who say, I stopped eating so many like packaged foods or just, stuff like that. And I started eating more fruits and vegetables and my results were better. Now, can we say exactly why that is? No, I can't say exactly why, but it's something I've observed from people. So I always tell people, eat your veggies, eat your fruits. It's good to have plenty of whole foods in the diet when we do this program. Can people see results if they're, eating stuff out of packages? Absolutely. But a lot of people experience really great results when they eat more vegetables and fruit. And so we always tell people that,
And I have a theory on this. One could be the absorption of the calories might be a little bit different, but a lot of times the accuracy of these whole foods, particularly fruits and vegetables, is much higher than the accuracy from packaged goods.
I agree.
Also the hunger and satiety. So, the numbers might look good, but who knows like what really might happen. So people that eat more packaged goods, those are usually processed or ultra processed, which means they're digesting quicker, and they might have like higher food reward and encourage you to eat more. So unless we know literally exactly what's happening, we can't really say why eating like more fruits and vegetables is going to yield better results than if you eat like none. But I think it's for those reasons.
Yeah.
Why does La Croix, I don't even know how to say it. I'm going with that.
I don't either.
Why does La Croix no longer quench my thirst? I don't know. I mean, it's hotter now. I know where you live. I know you're like Northern California, maybe getting a little warmer. Maybe you're sweating a bit more, so you're not getting the same effect. Yeah. So these are good questions. I always want to encourage you guys to just think beyond the surface. So like with a question like this, it's like, why won't that 1 or 2 quench my thirst? Well, what else is happening? What are the changes to the environment? Are you moving more? Are you eating foods that have less water in them? Because some foods can also hydrate. So there's a lot of things around this. You might also be eating more salty foods. So yeah, lots of things to check out. Further, how do they flavor La Croix? Is it bad? I think it's some kind of artificial sweetener. I think it's
I'm not sure. I don't know that La Croix actually has any sweeteners, or if it's
I actually have no idea.
I think it's just a flavoring. I don't think it has any sweet in it. Yeah. I could be wrong. It's just flavoring. Chemicals.
Chemicals. Can you please comment on what loosening up in maintenance for the summer means? Stronger You podcast. My first attempt in maintenance at a social event landed me negative 1,500 for the day. I was a total, I won't say the word.
We all know it.
So loosening up is kind of like this, right? Like I'm kind of loose right now. I have no real specific like fat loss goal. I don't care about what I look like at a beach right now. So I'm just kind of using everything I've learned to eat relatively intuitively, just based on like feel and my environment. So sometimes it's good to just cruise in lifestyle mode, right? You learned a bunch of stuff, but as long as you don't overdo it, you shouldn't get in too much trouble. So some people like to do this around holidays, which can probably backfire because there's a lot of tempting foods around. Other people do it around summer when there's a lot of travel and fun and events. But always think of this, like don't go too far over your calories. Don't have too many snack foods and all these things. Hit your protein and you're probably going to be in a good place.
Going over 1,500 calories on a regular basis is going to get you in trouble.
Yeah. Every now and then.
It's too much. Yeah.
And
every
that
now
alone, if you do that one time a week, like you might be gaining weight.
You gain weight over time.
You need to be careful there.
Yep. So I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, but I usually tell people like who are going on vacation for a week, if you stay within 200 to 300 of your calories, like you're probably fine. You're going to maintain, You're going to be fine. If you start to mess with going 500 calories or more, where you can get into trouble. If you're going over by 1,000 calories, we're definitely going to get into trouble.
Axe asks, you cannot maintain your lean look you achieved in a cut while on maintenance. No, that is false.
That's
you
false.
Can maintain your lean look if you stick with things. Many people might realize that once they get the abs, like it's cool, everything's great. But and this is me. I don't want to stay as lean as I've ever been. It's just not a lifestyle I feel like living. You might be different. Someone else might be different. So it all depends on, again, the spectrum. Like how strict do you want to be? How loose do you want to be? Find your middle ground.
Yeah, and also you can maintain a lean look and gain a few pounds and still look very lean. You might not maintain your exact weight at the bottom of your cut. Most people don't maintain the exact weight, but that doesn't mean you don't still look lean.
Yeah, right.
You might not look dehydrated and depleted, and we don't actually want people to look dehydrated and depleted. So
yeah, want you to be healthy. Yeah. Is there anything, something called eating too much protein? My coach is aware of my disorder. Sounds like you like protein. So, I mean, for health reasons, like as long as you don't have any like kidney issues, like you can go super high. I mean, there's like burn victims in hospitals and like people that have like, they need like limb replacements and things that will have protein like super jacked up to repair themselves. If you like protein and you want to eat more, just keep in mind it still has calories and can raise your overall caloric intake over the threshold of deficit, maintenance, and into surplus if you're not careful.
Yeah, and I just like to tell people sometimes it has like diminishing returns to have protein too high because you don't really get any benefits anymore beyond a certain level, right? So if you could have more fat and more carbs instead, and those actually maybe do have some benefits, like, well, the carbs if you're for fuel, for exercise and activity, and maybe the fat because there's some reasons why we might want fat a little bit higher, right? So I just feel like at some point we don't want to keep just giving more protein just for the heck of it because there's just no benefit. Like we get the benefits up to a certain point, and then beyond that, it's kind of like, will I be better served getting this from different macro? Now there are some people who like in maintenance, we need to keep raising their calories, like, cause they really like, they just have demonstrated that they can manage more food. And so sometimes those people will get more of everything and we'll raise up the protein because it's like, hey, we might as well, right? Because you don't want, they sort of say, I don't really want any more carbs and fat. Can I have more protein? And in that case, sure.
Are tofu and edamame okay as staple proteins in one's diet? So it depends. If you are vegan vegetarian, you might not have many choices. So they could be good things. But remember, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, I'm not sure if they're complete proteins. Again, maybe not a big deal. As long as you're having a variety of things, you can get the complete proteins, which means you're getting the essential amino acids. So probably not a bad thing, but maybe not the best thing. But again, probably doesn't really matter that much for you.
I eat quite a lot of tofu and edamame. I mean, I eat meat also, but my kids are both vegetarian. So it is a complete protein.
It is,
I mean, I happen to think that it's good to just diversify your holdings, diversify your food, diversify your protein. But, when you're a vegan or vegetarian, your choices are more limited.
Sorry, I got posts ideas in my head from what you just said. Any truth to eating fruit after 12? The one is not good because of the natural sugar. Nonsense. No truth. Fine. Yeah. It's good to have refeed day, increasing your so here's kind of the deal with refeed days too. Very few people, maybe like one or two of you ever, have been so perfect where you haven't accidentally given yourself a refeed. I'm
going to get my power cord, by the way. I need to charge.
So yeah, refeed days are really only if you're so damn perfect for so long and you've been in a deficit for a long time. Most people accidentally give themselves refeed days by just living life. So, eating late at night doesn't matter. Losing weight with or without exercise, exercise can just make it easier. This is a good one. Are there any truth to superfoods? How do nutritionists feel about that term to consumers? Depends on the nutritionist. Superfoods is kind of this made up term to make people think that certain foods are extra special. And yeah, there are certain foods that have a lot of nutrients and health benefits and things like that. But to make people think that like life is going to be really different if they have like some blueberries or acai berries, like isn't really a thing. Again, more intermittent fasting. Do you think combining tracking with intermittent fasting? So really only if you have issues with hunger. So if you can hit your macros and you're satisfied, then probably don't need to do intermittent fasting. If you feel like you're really hungry and you're spending too much food money on breakfast, then just shift that back. I tend to get away from these terms and these identifiers of diet. I think it leads to thoughts of like superiority with eating, and it keeps us in a bubble. Like you don't have to identify. I think, I joked about this exactly a year or two ago. I checked my memories. I said, nobody dislikes your diet until you start naming it. So like keto, paleo, intermittent fasting, vegan, vegetarian for, specific reasons, like people start to judge, which isn't necessarily fair, but people start to judge based on how you name your diet. It's like for us, it's like, we just eat responsibly. That's what we do here.
Eat responsibly. I love it.
Yeah. Just curious. I'm currently visiting my mom for a few days. She lives in a different state than me. I am not as active or getting as many steps as normally. Do I still hit my macros since I'm not burning as many calories and I can still lose weight? What do you think, Winnie?
I mean, I think that, again, we overestimate how the exercise affects our fat loss a lot of the time. And most of the time when I have people in that situation, if they keep weighing themselves, we don't see that them getting less exercise at that point is really affecting anything. I mean, are there exceptions to this rule? Probably. Like if someone is injured and is like literally flat on the couch and can't move at all, we might have to take some macros down or carbs down. But I've even seen in that situation not having to. So a lot of time, this is where it kind of this is why you and I have seen it firsthand that exercise doesn't always help as much as people think, right? We don't burn as many calories. It doesn't. So I would say, no, you don't necessarily need to adjust, but that doesn't, I would just see what happens in real time,
Yeah, because you're still burning calories even though you're not doing those things. So like if I go for an hour walk, maybe I burn a few hundred calories. If I don't go for an hour walk, maybe I burn like 112 less.
And like walking is something that we can do everywhere, right? Even if we can't go
even around the house.
Right. And just I don't wear a exercise tracker that much because I forget most of the time. But when I do wear it, a lot of times if I just see that my steps are low, I just go up and down the stairs some, or just empty my laundry basket in 20 loads of just go up and down the stairs, like create activity where I can. And that isn't about doing formal exercise. It's just about being active.
Cool. What is a good maintenance range taking into account daily fluctuations? Is seasonal variation a myth, or do we allow for increased weight in winter? That definitely happens around winter. There's a lot of research that suggests the extra weight that most people carry throughout their whole lives is gained right around the holiday period. So in other words, people gain the weight around the holidays and they never, ever lose it. So that's why it's really, really important to be careful around the holiday season. So people are gaining and they're not losing. So that's not us though. We're extra good at this stuff.
Because we're responsible.
We're responsible eaters. But the maintenance fluctuations, few pounds, but I like to look at waste in maintenance, even with the scale, because the scale can go up because you're now storing more water. You might have more food mass in your digestive tract, and you're going to store more glycogen with increased carbs as well. So that can weigh something, but as long as the waste isn't really going up, you're probably in a good place. Yeah, so a comment here. Yes, so good. I couldn't understand why I was gaining on keto, way too much fat. Yeah, so keto still works because it puts you in a caloric deficit, but it also might not put you in a deficit. My boyfriend's gym rat work husband talks frequently about eating too much protein causing crystals in kidneys. I know this is total nonsense, but where did this myth come from? My mom and her friends have said the same thing. I'm honestly not sure. Who knows? Like some certain situations where someone had kidney stones and they happened to have lots of protein and they started associating things with that. Maybe there's specific health conditions that can encourage that.
So like if you have poor kidney function, you should not eat, we may need to, I've had members with that situation and we had to take the protein down quite a bit.
Yep.
Because that was what their doctor recommended. But this isn't something that just happens for average people.
Yeah. Kristen says, I just joined, so I'm sorry if these were already answered. Does it matter when I drink my protein shake, after workout, before bed, etc.? Ideally, probably the best time to do it would be post-workout, just because you're digesting it quicker and you're probably going to utilize those nutrients best at that time. Doesn't really matter, but if you're asking what the best time is, I'll give you the best time. Number two, okay, so White Claw. I just had one last night, and it was only 2 carbs. That's it, but it's 100 calories. As far as alcohol goes, what is better or worse? So, boom, boom, boom. I'm going to remind you, Kristen, read that guide, specifically the alcohol section, because you're going to want to log those White Claws a little bit differently. And in terms of alcohol, what's best isn't about the alcohol. It's about what else is in the alcohol or the amounts. So something like a big craft beer might be worse than a shot or 2 of vodka. So it's not really about the alcohol. It's about what else is coming with it. I love margaritas, but margaritas are probably a little worse than, a rum and Diet Coke, just because the sugars.
Sweet stuff.
Yeah. Now,
so just since we touched on alcohol, I mean, it hasn't come up in the group in a while, I don't think, but a lot of times people say they don't understand why we track alcohol the way we do with the allotment of the carbs and fat, and then a lot of members will say, oh, well, that's your penalty, your alcohol penalty, and that's not. We don't like people to think about a penalty. It's just the way we're accounting for the calories in the alcohol, and so we attribute that. We allot that fat and carbs because that helps us account for the calories, because otherwise alcohol is like its own macro with 7 calories per gram, and there isn't a way to account for it in MyFitnessPal. We can account for this is the best way we came up with, that lets us, and then we have to make decisions based on that, because we can say, well, do I really want to allocate my carbs and fat to this drink? Do I want to eat my macros instead? And I think it gets a good thought process going, because, if you put all your fat grams into alcohol, then you don't get to eat any dietary fat, and that's not healthy,
Yes.
So we don't want to be in that place.
This is a good question from Rosanna, but this is my answer is going to be more like lifestyle than it is about like workout efficiency. She says, can you split it? Cardio before work and strength after? Will you be just as efficient at both? Potentially. You might be really awesome at both because there's a big break in between, so you could rest a little bit. But for me, I don't want to worry about 2 showers in the day. I don't want to get more clothes dirty. I don't want to have to allocate some of my personal time to these things times 2. I would rather get them done in one clip, but that's just my personal preference. So your personal preference might be different. What if it's not about a weight number, but being a certain fat percentage? How do we measure for that? We really can't. This is the difficult thing. There's really no way to measure body fat accurately unless the human body is dissected. And that's not what you want to do. So I just think of it like waist circumference, measurements, strength performance, cardio performance. It's one of these numbers that doesn't really mean anything. So I don't really know. I don't know. I'm maybe not the best to answer that. What do you think, Winnie?
I mean, there's like visual representations that you can find online. That's like at 20% body fat, you roughly look like this. At 23%, you look like this. At 18, you look like this. I mean, I think people see those things, maybe say, well, I want to be that body fat. I want to be 18%. But like you said, there isn't any way to, I think people get too hung up on this stuff, too hung up on the testing things, too hung up on thinking it's a metric of, happiness. It's going to make me happy to be this body fat. The way you look and the way you feel about how you look and the way you actually feel in your body, I feel those are more important things than like being hung up on a weight or body fat percentage. I have no idea what my body fat is. I have gotten on a few different things over the years, like where it was offered like for free, like, hey, take this free assessment in this context. And they have given me, numbers that ranged from 14%, which I know I'm not, to 25%, which I also know I'm not. So my body fat is probably somewhere in the middle of that, and I don't really care. But it also just illustrates like this thing's just, there's so much error, and so I know people like to use them. They like to get on the InBody or whatever, and they say, oh, well, 3 months ago it showed me this, and now it shows me this, and that's cool. But again, we can't really rely on it as accurate, so.
Yeah. Is protein from food better than protein from powders, bars? So this is the type of question that I like to encourage people to think a little bit differently on. What does better mean? So could be convenience, could be health, could be protein absorption, utilization, muscle protein synthesis. So they're just different, right? Food might keep you more full than a powder or a bar. But in terms of like getting the benefits of protein, doesn't really matter. It's about all that other stuff, like how you feel when you do it, how convenient each of them are, what it might encourage after the fact. So
yeah, and you and I, well, we've done so many of these lives now, Mike. We did one specifically on protein like a year or two ago, and we talked a lot about protein and stuff. But a lot of times people ask, they say, well, I don't want to get my protein from shakes or bars because it's not food, but it is food. So,
yeah,
food. This is something that a lot of people get worried about and say, well, that's a bad way to get my protein, but it's not, because it's not bad. It's just another form of, and it is food, like I said. And you and I eat protein powder and protein drinks, and I find it massively convenient to get some of my protein that way. And also I like the way protein, I like making shakes and adding protein powder because it's yummy. So I don't know. I think this is kind of like the Diet Coke question where people are like, well, it's chemicals and therefore it's bad. And people say, well, it's a powder, so it's bad, but it's not.
No. Yeah. We have to get away from this absolute mindset, like a lot of people will talk about chemicals, but they'll dive headfirst in a swimming pool filled with chemicals.
Yeah,
you're probably ingesting more chemicals like that than you ever would in your lifetime in the amount you eat.
Yeah, and I'm not calling anyone in particular out, but there is a common theme that comes when a lot of times people say, I will not put artificial sweeteners in my body, but yet they're happy to suck down their wine. And so we have to say, well, the wine is actually a toxin to your liver. Like that actually is a toxin. So
it's like you have to have like, I don't know. It's weird. It's like the way people treat certain things while turning a blind eye to all the other things.
Yeah. So it's good to just like accept that, like everything there, you can find something wrong with probably everything. Right. But we don't have to focus on what's wrong with stuff. We can focus on what's the benefits. And if we want that thing in our life, we eat it, drink it. And otherwise we don't have to, but like, the absolute things, when we get stuck on that, it's like, you could just then live that you could just say, well, all I can have is water because there's something wrong with literally every other thing on the planet.
Right.
And that's not going to help.
It's good context to think about, right? Like things just, it's not that complicated. Focus on the things that we know impact our health, like having a healthy amount of body fat, being active, sleeping well, de-stressing. Like those are the big rocks.
Yep, absolutely.
Is there
water?
Yeah, yep. Is there a myth to certain number of cheat days, free reign, long as you hit your macros and movement 95% of the time, or is this a slippery slope? So I don't love the word cheat day. Like, there's no morality in this stuff. Like if you want to enjoy yourself every now and then, go for it. As long as you're happy with results and you're seeing the success you want to see, carry on. There's many days where I'm just like, I don't care. I'm just going to do whatever I want. But most of the time I'm good. And on average, it puts me in a really good place. So as long as that's you, go for it. Enjoy yourself.
Yeah. And I think it's important to not attach the word cheating because that just sets it up that like the default is just morally better or something. I don't know. I don't love it.
But if you can, like, think about these things you think as cheats. Can you work them into a day with still hitting numbers or at least calories?
That's way preferable.
Yeah. And it might just mean like you have protein and lettuce leading up to this meal. So, I think we're at the end of the question.
2.5 hours. It's a record.
Was it 2.5? Oh my God. Whoa. We broke a record. So if you stayed with us the whole time, everybody gets 100 free sessions of Stronger You. I'm just kidding. That's not an official.
You get
claim.
these 5 extra grams of carbs.
But no, thank you guys. This was really fun. This will be recorded. I I can't believe how long we've gone. I really have to go to the bathroom, but I had a great time.
Me too.
All right, I'm going to end this thing, and then we'll say our goodbyes, Winnie.
Okay.
So thank you guys very much, and we'll see you in 2 weeks with a new topic.
Sounds good.
All right, SUers. I wasn't kidding, was I? That baby was long, but it was good. It was so good. There's so much valuable info in there, and there's so much that we could all do to take away. So hope you enjoyed it. Hope you're feeling like you've learned a thing or two, maybe three. And thanks for listening, guys. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode, so keep your ears peeled. Bye.
Stronger You Radio is a broadcast wellness production powered by StrongerUFit.com. Content copyright Stronger You. Executive producer Frank Sardella. Thanks for listening to Stronger You Radio. For more information on the podcast, visit StrongerUPodcast.com.